He's full of himself.
All right, creepers, welcome to web design, web development today. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be picking up where we left off with forms, and we're going to be looking at how to send email. So open up your forms.php file, or if you're on the server, just duplicate it. And we're going to save it as or duplicate it, and we're going to create a file called let's call it contactform.php. All right, go ahead and open that up. So it should basically be the same file as our forms.php example from the other day. And let's just update the title information and some of the stuff in here to make it look right.
Contactform.php.
And it looks like we already have a basic form set up here. So what we'll do is we'll build this form out a little bit to get some more information, because we want to get the name of the person, we want to get their email address, and we want to get a message. So let's come down and where the email and label and input field are, let's copy that and duplicate it for name. And we're going to change the ID, we're going to change the name to name. This is a little silly to have name equals name, but that's the way it works.
Wait, if you just hit Control V.
To have an email. So go ahead and set up your code so that you have that.
It should be contact.
Stay over there, you too.
All right. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a text area field so that you could put in an actual message. And I'll copy the code, but we're going to change the input field. So the label can stay the same. It'll say message for message. But instead of having an input field, we're going to create what's called a text area field. So we'll say text area. Name is going to be equal to message. ID is equal to message. And of course, we don't want that to be after submit, so we'll just go ahead and fix that up right there. And I'll even show you something new, that you could say value. It would be better if you spelled it in all caps, because that's really the best way to communicate online. But if I upload that and go check it out in the Creepy Movie, or we check it out in Internet Explorer, our favorite web browser.
As always.
Just booting up the browser here. Just booting up the browser here. We'll pause it while we wait. Okay, so now I have my form up here, and it looks like something's weird there. It looks like there's some extra paragraph tags, so I'll go back and check that. Text area. Oh, count it. Text area is different than the input field. So notice that input is what's called self-closing, meaning it just ends as a / angle bracket, and it doesn't need a closing input tag. Text area does. Make that quick correction there. And now we should see this. And you see what that value attribute did to the submit form. I changed it to say value, and then whatever I type in for value will show up as the value in the form. So now that we've got all this stuff here, before we can send our email, let's just get everything to print out. All right? So if submitted is true, let's create a few more variables here. And we'll keep them in the order that they appear in our HTML, because we like orderly HTML.
Darn. No cast.
That was
What's
so
going on?
mean. He's joking.
And technically speaking, we should probably make this form a little bit nicer. Because now that we have to validate more than one piece of information, we're going to change up the format a bit. So we're going to create an empty array. Actually, no, we won't create it here.
Mr. Gordon, it's submitting to forms.php.
Can we change that?
Do the creep. Okay, yeah, I'll just change it. Never mind. I was going to show you something cool, but we don't want to do cool. All right, contact form.php. Good call. All right, so if email is equal to blank, we're going to create variable that's actually going to be an array. And we're going to create this array on the fly and add in, instead of just leaving it blank so that it becomes error message 0, meaning the first error message, we're going to say error message for email woo, is equal to true. So what this is telling us is that there has been an error for email, and it's now blank. We could also change it to a string and say email required. Or we could just set it to be true, and we'll do more with that later. So let's duplicate this form, or this validation, and we'll say name, error, name. Now, in a real example, if we were to go further with sending mail, which we're not really going to do, we could create an array of all the form elements and then loop through them automatically. Because let's say that you had a registration form and the form required, it was a 5-page form and each page had 18 questions on it. We're talking about a huge number of fields that we have to validate, and it would not make sense to write this over 500 times, especially if the form is going to be something that the client will edit themselves or, with the CMS. So this isn't the best long-term approach, but it's going to work for what we've got. So now let's come back down here and let's put another PHP block right above our form. And let's say if submitted is equal to true, meaning if the form's been submitted, and actually we don't even need to say that. We could just say if it's set error. All right, so this is something new here for us. We have not seen this function before, and what this function does is check to see if that variable has been declared or if it's been created, quote unquote, if it's been set. So I'll get your question in 1 second. If this name is not blank, then error name will never be created. Right? That makes sense logically. And likewise, if they fill in all of the fields, that error will never be created. So if we test to see if is set error, we know that if it is set, that there's going to be an error message. Okay, yeah, what was your question?
What if they don't type anything and then there's an error and then they do it right? Isn't it still going to be set?
Yeah. How do you go back to the beginning?
We'll get there. It might not be today, but we'll get there. Okay. So if it's set, then we want to print something like that. And technically, we'd probably want to actually do this a little bit differently and get some paragraph tags in there. Yeah, we should do it right. All right, hold on. If you remember back to our conditionals, if we want to have a conditional statement that has PHP inside of it, we'd open the if statement, do what we want to do with HTML, and then close the if statement. So let's just test that out and see if it even works. Refresh it once or twice, make sure that it's got the latest version. What? Worked for me. Why don't you guys test it out and see if you can get that working for yourself as well.
Can you just go down the code?
All right, so you should have this nice validation here. Now, how do we know which of these forms is actually the one that has an error message? We want to provide some sort of visual cue. So what we're going to do visually is we're going to add a required class dynamically to any input field that's empty. And then we'll style that red so that somebody knows to go check it. So let's look at how that would work. Under input for name, we're going to write some PHP right in here. And if error name exists is equal to true, then we want to display a class called required. But we can't just check if error name is equal to true. We have to check if error name is set, because if it's not set and we check if it's true, it's going to throw an error. So let's try this. We'll say if I think we could. Okay, let's give it a whirl. We'll see. If this doesn't work, we'll go about it another way. I did this example the other day, so I don't remember exactly what I had to do, but I think. In Java, is there a function or way of testing to see if an array index exists? Does that make sense?
You can check how big the array is.
That's what she said. What's up?
What?
How big the array is. How many.
But we want to see not if it has more than one. We want to see if this particular one, like we want to see if just the name one exists.
You have to tell it how big the array is before you use it, so you can't like add stuff to it over time.
Wait, you're telling me that your array can't get bigger if you want it to?
Like the regular array, there's an array list class.
Huh, interesting. Okay. Once again, thankful we're not coding Java anymore. So inside of this, we'll say class is equal to required, and then we'll close our PHP.
That's not for you, doesn't it?
Doesn't suck.
She's not ashamed of the size of her array. All right, PHP. If it's set, the error is equal. If error name is set, class required. So let's go back and test this, and if we submit it now, we should see a form. Okay, it says that there are errors, and I'm going to check my source code and see if that class was added to
What are you gonna do?
the
In
form.
the mouth, yeah.
Probably would.
I probably could.
Probably would.
So notice that down here in the code, it has in fact said class equal to required. So that did work for us. And now a little bit of CSS, and we could get that to look red. So let's come up after our title tag, and let's create a little style block.
Oh, I can do this.
And let's say input dot required, meaning that any input element that has a class of required, make the border What's FFF? No.
Black. White.
FF9? 009? I think 009 is like maroon.
True. I don't know.
Let's try that. It's blue? 009 is blue? It's a dark blue? Okay, then it's 900.
Darn it.
Yeah, RGB.
I could've remembered
Boom.
07. Oh.
Like it. All right, so let's refresh this form here. And notice now that when I submit it and it checks for errors, this is in red. Right?
Classy.
Pretty cool. Now, that may not be enough, so let's make the background a little color too, right? To let them know, listen, B, you need to do something about this. I'm going to get my little color picker because I'm going for light pink, and I don't have hexadecimal memorized for light pink. But Adam, could you tell me what it is?
I didn't know any colors. That's so rude. You guys is confused.
Okay, so that should hopefully be pinkish. Let's try it again.
Oh, that's true, actually.
And there we go. Now that's obvious. If I was doing this for a client, and you guys have seen the site that I did recently, the law site, this is what I did for it. I think I'd also make the label, I'd add a required text to that and make it like bold and black or something. But for now, this is enough for us, right? This is fine. This is fine. So go ahead and do the same thing for your email and your message. Oh, no, hold on. Your CSS, input dot required, comma, text area dot required. Because if the message is required, it'll need that too. So go ahead and make it so that your email and your messages will do the same thing as the input for the name, and we'll stop here with that.